What happens when a casual interview turns into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history? Teddy Swims, the soulful singer who's taken the music world by storm, found himself in a conversation with Kelly Clarkson that went from friendly to explosive in a matter of minutes. Before we get into what actually went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about this whole situation. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this plays out. The interview started like any other episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show. The audience was buzzing with excitement. The stage was set with its signature warm lighting, and Kelly came out with her usual infectious energy. Teddy walked onto the stage looking relaxed in a casual button-up shirt and jeans. That trademark smile on his face as the crowd erupted in applause. He'd been on a meteoric rise, and this appearance was supposed to be a celebration of his success, a chance to connect with fans and share his journey. Kelly started things off the way she always does, warm and welcoming. "Teddy Swims, everybody," she said, gesturing toward him as the applause continued. "I have to tell you, I've been listening to your music, Nan. Stop. Your voice is absolutely incredible." Teddy nodded appreciatively, settling into the guest chair. "Thank you so much, Kelly. That means the world coming from you. I grew up listening to your music, so this is honestly surreal." The first few minutes went smoothly. They talked about his latest album, his tour, and the overwhelming response from fans. Kelly seemed genuinely interested, leaning forward and asking follow-up questions about his creative process. Teddy was in his element, talking passionately about music and the stories behind his songs. "So I want to talk about your journey," Kelly said, shifting in her seat. "Because you didn't have the traditional path to success. You were doing covers on YouTube for years before you broke through. What was that like, putting yourself out there day after day without knowing if it would lead anywhere?" Teddy took a breath, and you could see him thinking about how to answer. "It was hard," he admitted. "There were a lot of times I questioned whether I was wasting my time. But I just loved music too much to stop. I needed to create, It wasn't really about the destination for me. It was about the process." Kelly nodded, but then her expression changed slightly. There was something in her eyes, a shift that seemed to signal the conversation was about to go somewhere else. "But let's be honest," she said, her tone becoming more pointed. "You had to know that covers alone weren't going to make you a star. At some point, you had to pivot to original music. Was that a calculated decision?" The word calculated hung in the air for a moment. Teddy's smile faltered just a bit. "I wouldn't say calculated," he replied carefully. "I think it was a natural evolution. When I started making original music, it was because I had things I wanted to say that I couldn't express through other people's songs." Kelly tilted her head, and there was something almost challenging in her posture now. "Right? But timing is everything in this industry. You released your original music at exactly the right moment, when your platform was big enough to support it. That seems pretty strategic to me." You could see Teddy's jaw tighten slightly. He shifted in his seat, his hands clasping together. "I mean, sure, I waited until I felt ready and until I had an audience that might actually listen. But I don't think that makes it calculated. It makes it smart. Why would I release music before I was ready or before anyone cared?" The audience was starting to sense the tension. The energy in the room had changed from celebratory to uncomfortable. Kelly pressed on, and now there was definitely an edge to her voice. "I'm just saying, there's a difference between being authentic and being strategic. And in today's music industry, sometimes it's hard to tell which is which." Teddy sat back in his chair, and you could see him processing what was happening. This wasn't the friendly interview he'd signed up for. "Kelly, I'm not sure where this is coming from," he said, his voice steady, but with an undercurrent of frustration. "Are you suggesting that I'm not authentic? Because I can tell you right now, everything I've done has come from a real place. I'm not playing a character. This is who I am." Kelly held up her hands in a gesture that seemed defensive. "I'm not attacking you, Teddy. I'm just asking the questions that I think a lot of people wonder about. You've built this persona of the everyman, the guy who struggled and made it through sheer talent and perseverance. But you've also been very savvy about how you've marketed yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, but let's call it what it is." The word persona clearly struck a nerve. Teddy leaned forward, his voice rising slightly. "A persona? Kelly, with all due respect, I don't have a persona. I'm not manufactured. I didn't have a team of executives crafting my image. I was literally singing in my bedroom and posting videos online because I had nothing else. That's not a marketing strategy. That's survival. Kelly's expression hardened. Okay, but once you got big, things changed, right? You got signed to a label, you got a management team, you started doing all the things that artists do to build their brand. So at what point does the guy in his bedroom become the product? There was a murmur from the audience now, an uncomfortable shifting. This had crossed a line from tough interviewing into something that felt personal. Teddy shook his head, and you could see the emotion building in his face. You know what, Kelly? I came here thinking we were going to have a conversation about music. I didn't realize I was going to have to defend my entire existence. Kelly didn't back down. I'm not asking you to defend anything. I'm asking you to be real about how this industry works. You're sitting here as a successful artist, but let's not pretend like it was all just luck and talent. You made choices. You played the game. Teddy's voice was sharp now, cutting through the tension. Played the game? What game did I play? I sang songs. I connected with people. I poured my heart into every single thing I created. If that's playing the game to you, then I guess I'm guilty. But I'm not going to sit here and let you reduce everything I've worked for into some cynical calculation. Kelly crossed her arms, her own frustration visible now. I think you're being defensive because you know there's truth to what I'm saying. Every artist has to make compromises. Every artist has to think about their image and their brand. You're not special in that regard. The words hung in the air like a slap. Teddy stared at her for a moment, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. You know what, Kelly? He said quietly, his voice trembling with barely controlled anger. I actually thought you, of all people, would understand. You came from a reality show. You had people doubting you, saying you were manufactured, saying you were just a product of the machine. I thought you'd get what it's like to have people question your authenticity. Kelly's face flushed. Don't turn this around on me, Teddy. My journey has nothing to do with this conversation. Doesn't it, though? Teddy shot back. Because you're sitting here doing exactly what people did to you. You're trying to poke holes in my story, trying to find the cracks, trying to prove that it's not real. Why? What's the point of this? The studio had gone almost silent, except for their voices. The crew behind the cameras looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to keep rolling or intervene. Kelly leaned forward, her voice cold now. The point is that I ask real questions. I don't just sit here and lob salt. If you can't handle that, maybe you're not ready for this level of exposure. Teddy stood up abruptly, the microphone pack nearly pulling off his belt. Not ready? I've been ready for this my whole life. What I'm not ready for is being disrespected on national television by someone who should know better. Kelly stood too, her voice rising to match his. Disrespected. I'm doing my job, Teddy. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but this is what real journalism looks like. Journalism? Teddy laughed bitterly. Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm standing, this feels like a hit piece. Did I do something to you? Did I offend you in some way before I even walked out here? Kelly's eyes flashed. This isn't personal, Teddy. Don't make it personal. You made it personal. The second you started questioning my authenticity, Teddy fired back. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've sacrificed, what I've had to overcome to get here, and you have the audacity to sit there and reduce it all to strategy and calculation. The audience was completely still now, watching this unfold like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Kelly stepped around her chair, her posture defensive. I'm asking the questions that need to be asked, Teddy. If you can't answer them without getting emotional, that's on you. Teddy's hands were shaking now, and he pointed a finger toward Kelly, his voice raw with emotion. Getting emotional? You're damn right I'm getting emotional. This is my life we're talking about. This isn't some abstract concept or debate topic. This is years of struggle and pain and doubt and finally making something of myself, and you're trying to tear it down for what? For ratings? Kelly's face went rigid. For ratings. How dare you? I've built my career on having honest conversations with people. I don't need to manufacture drama for ratings, Teddy. This show has been successful because I'm real with my guests. Real? Teddy's voice cracked. There's a difference between being real and being cruel. Kelly, you could have asked me about my music, about my influences, about where I'm going next. Instead, you chose to attack my character, to question my motives, to make me feel like everything I've accomplished is somehow fraudulent. Kelly threw her hands up. I didn't attack your character. I asked legitimate questions about the business side of your career. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you need to examine why. Because it's not true, Teddy said, his voice dropping to something more dangerous, more controlled. That's why it makes me uncomfortable. You're creating a narrative that doesn't exist. You're painting me as some kind of calculated operator when the reality is I was just a guy who loved to sing. That's it. That's the whole story. But apparently, that's not interesting enough for you. Kelly moved closer to him, and the physical proximity made the tension even more palpable. You know what I think, Teddy? I think you're afraid to admit that you're part of the machine now. You want to maintain this image of being the authentic artist, who's somehow above all the commercial aspects of the music industry, but you're not. You're signed to a major label. You have publicists and managers and people whose entire job is to shape how the public perceives you. Own it. Teddy's laugh was hollow. You want me to own it? Fine. Yes, I have a team. Yes, I'm signed to a label. Yes, I make business decisions. But that doesn't mean I've sold my soul, Kelly. That doesn't mean the music isn't real. That doesn't mean I'm not still the same person who was singing in his bedroom 5 years ago. The infrastructure around me changed, but I didn't. Didn't you, though? Kelly challenged. Because the Teddy Swims who was posting covers online wasn't thinking about brand partnerships and streaming numbers and chart positions. That Teddy was just making music. This Teddy, the one sitting here right now, is a commodity, whether you want to admit it or not. The word commodity seemed to hit Teddy like a physical blow. He took a step back, his face a mixture of hurt and rage. A commodity, he repeated slowly. Is that really how you see artists? As commodities? Because if that's your perspective, then I feel sorry for you. I really do. Music isn't a product to me, Kelly. It's not something I manufacture and sell. It's how I communicate, how I process the world, how I connect with other human beings. Kelly's voice was icy now. That's a beautiful sentiment, Teddy, but it's naive. The moment you decided to make music your career instead of your hobby, it became a product. That's just the reality of the industry, and if you can't accept that, you're going to have a very difficult time navigating this business. Maybe I don't want to navigate it the way you think I should, Teddy shot back. Maybe I'm okay with being difficult. Maybe I'm okay with pushing back against people who try to reduce what I do into dollars and streams and marketing strategies. Because at the end of the day, when I'm alone in a studio or on stage in front of thousands of people, none of that matters. What matters is the connection, the emotion, the truth in the music. Kelly shook her head, and there was something almost pitying in her expression now. You're idealistic, I'll give you that. But idealism doesn't pay the bills, Teddy. It doesn't fill arenas. It doesn't keep you relevant in an industry that chews people up and spits them out every single day. Teddy demanded. That I should just give up on the idealism. That I should become cynical like you. Because if that's what success looks like, if that's what it means to make it in this industry, then maybe I don't want it. The audience gasped audibly at that statement. Kelly's eyes widened. Don't want it. You're literally on a press tour promoting your album. You're doing interviews, you're on social media, you're playing the game whether you admit it or not. So don't stand there and pretend like you're somehow above all of this. Teddy's voice was rising again, the frustration pouring out of him. I'm not above it, Kelly. I'm in it. I'm living it every single day. But I'm trying to do it with some integrity. I'm trying to stay true to who I am, while also navigating a system that constantly wants me to compromise. And instead of acknowledging how hard that is, instead of having a conversation about the real struggles artists face, you're sitting here trying to catch me in some kind of gotcha moment? A gotcha moment? Kelly's voice was sharp. Is that what you think this is? You think I'm trying to trick you or trap you? I'm trying to have an honest conversation. Teddy, but you're so wrapped up in protecting your image that you can't even hear what I'm saying. I hear exactly what you're saying, Teddy said, his voice shaking. You're saying that I'm fake? You're saying that my success is manufactured. You're saying that the person I present to the world isn't real. And you know what? That hurts, Kelly. It really does. Because I've worked so hard to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to show people who I really am. And for you to sit there and dismiss all of that, to question my sincerity, it's like a knife in the chest. Kelly's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. I'm not trying to hurt you, Teddy. I'm trying to challenge you. There's a difference. Challenge me about what? Teddy exploded. About whether I'm real enough for you? About whether I've compromised in ways you think I shouldn't have? Who made you the arbiter of authenticity? Kelly. Who gave you the right to judge whether someone else's journey is legitimate or not? Kelly's face flushed again, anger replacing any trace of sympathy. I have every right to ask these questions. This is my show. You agreed to come here knowing that I have conversations, real conversations, not just promotional fluff pieces. If you wanted someone to just praise you and ask easy questions, you should have gone somewhere else. Maybe I should have, Teddy said quietly, and the admission seemed to surprise both of them. Maybe I should have realized that coming here was a mistake, because clearly you had an agenda from the moment I walked out on this stage. You weren't interested in celebrating my music or hearing my story. You wanted to tear me down. That's not true, Kelly insisted, but her voice lacked conviction now. I wanted to have a real conversation. I wanted to get past the surface-level stuff and talk about what it really means to be an artist in this industry. By attacking me. Teddy's voice broke slightly. By making me feel like everything I've accomplished means nothing? By reducing my entire career to strategy and calculation? That's not a conversation, Kelly. That's an interrogation. And I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I'm done. Kelly took a step toward him, her hand reaching out slightly. Teddy, wait. Let's just take a breath and reset. We can start over. We can approach this differently. But Teddy was already unhooking his microphone pack, his hands fumbling with the wires. No, he said firmly. We can't start over, because the problem isn't how we're having this conversation. The problem is that you fundamentally don't respect me or what I do. And I can't sit here and pretend that's okay. I can't smile and nod and play along while you question my integrity. The producers were scrambling now. You could see movement in the wings of the stage, people speaking urgently into headsets. Kelly looked around, suddenly aware that this was spiraling completely out of control. Teddy, please. Let's just sit down and talk this through. As professionals, Teddy repeated, the word sounding bitter in his mouth. You want to talk about being professional? Professionals don't ambush their guests. Professionals don't create hostile environments. Professionals treat each other with basic respect. Kelly's voice hardened again. I have been nothing but respectful. Teddy, just because you don't like the questions doesn't mean they weren't asked respectfully. There's a difference between tough questions and personal attacks, Teddy countered, and you crossed that line a long time ago. You're not interested in understanding me or my perspective. You're interested in proving that you're right and I'm wrong, and I don't have to subject myself to that. The studio audience was frozen. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others were leaning forward in their seats, completely absorbed in the drama unfolding before them. Kelly looked at them briefly, then back at Teddy, and you could see the calculation happening in her eyes. She was trying to figure out how to salvage this, how to regain control. Teddy, Kelly said, her voice taking on a different tone now, softer, but still edged with tension. I think you're misunderstanding my intentions here. I'm not your enemy. I'm someone who's been in this industry for over 2 decades. I've seen what happens to artists who aren't prepared for the realities of fame and success. I'm trying to help you see the full picture. Teddy stopped fiddling with his microphone and looked at her directly, his eyes blazing. Help me? You think this is helping? Kelly, you're not my mentor. You're not my friend. Right now, you're just someone who's making me feel terrible about myself and my choices on national television. If that's your idea of help, I don't want it. Kelly's jaw clenched. You know what? Fine. If you want to walk around with blinders on, pretending that the industry doesn't work the way it works, that's your choice. But don't come crying when reality hits you in the face and you realize that everything I said here today was true. There it is, Teddy said, a bitter smile crossing his face. That's what this is really about. You're not concerned about me or my career. You just want to be right. You want to prove that your cynical worldview is the only valid perspective, and anyone who sees things differently is just naive or stupid. Kelly stepped closer, her voice dropping but somehow becoming more intense. I'm cynical because I've earned the right to be. I've been chewed up by this industry. I've been criticized and doubted and underestimated. I've had to fight for every single thing I have. So yes, Teddy, I see things clearly now. I see how the game is played, and I'm not going to apologize for trying to open your eyes to it. But that's just it, Teddy said, his voice rising with passion. Your experience isn't universal. Your journey isn't my journey. And just because you had to become hard and cynical to survive doesn't mean I have to. Maybe I can do this differently. Maybe I can maintain my optimism and my authenticity and still succeed. Did you ever consider that?" Kelly laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Optimism and authenticity don't keep you from being exploited, Teddy. They don't protect you from the people who will use you and discard you the moment you're no longer profitable. I'm trying to toughen you up because someone needs to." "I don't need to be toughened up," Teddy shot back. "I need to be respected. I need to be heard. And I need people to trust that I know what I'm doing with my own life and my own career. You don't get to decide what's best for me, Kelly. You don't get to force your worldview on me and then act like you're doing me a favor." The emotion in the room was suffocating now. Kelly's hands were trembling slightly, and she clasped them together in front of her. "You think I'm forcing my worldview on you? I'm sharing my experience. I'm offering perspective that you clearly don't have. But if you're too stubborn or too proud to listen, that's on you." "It's not stubbornness," Teddy said, his voice cracking again. "It's self-preservation. Because if I listen to you, if I internalize what you're saying, I'll lose the only thing that makes me who I am. I'll become just another artist going through the motions, playing the game, doing what I'm told. And I didn't come this far just to become a hollow version of myself." Kelly's face contorted with frustration. "You're being dramatic. Nobody's asking you to become hollow. I'm asking you to be smart, to protect yourself, to understand that this industry will eat you alive if you're not careful. And I'm telling you that I'd rather be eaten alive than lose my soul." Teddy replied, his voice steady now, resolved. "I'd rather fail being true to myself than succeed by becoming someone I don't recognize. And if you can't understand that, if you can't respect that, then we have nothing more to talk about." Kelly's eyes flashed with something that looked like hurt beneath the anger. "So that's it. You're just going to walk away. You're going to throw a tantrum and leave because you didn't like what I had to say." "A tantrum?" Teddy's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is that what you think this is? Kelly, I've been nothing but honest with you. I've explained my position, I've defended myself, I've tried to make you understand where I'm coming from, and you've dismissed every word. You've patronized me, you've questioned my integrity, and now you're reducing my completely valid frustration to a tantrum. So yeah, I'm walking away, because this isn't productive, it's not healthy, and I don't owe you anything." The audience shifted uncomfortably, and there were a few scattered murmurs. Kelly glanced at them again, and you could see the wheels turning in her head. She was losing control of the narrative, losing control of the situation entirely. "Teddy, listen," she said, her voice taking on a pleading quality now. "I didn't mean for this to go this way. Can we just pause, take a commercial break, and come back to this with cooler heads?" Teddy was already walking toward the edge of the stage, his microphone pack dangling from his hand. "No, Kelly, we can't. Because a commercial break isn't going to change the fundamental problem here. You don't respect me, and I can't force you to. So I'm removing myself from this situation before it gets any worse." Kelly followed him a few steps, her heels clicking on the stage floor. "Teddy, you're making a huge mistake. Walking off like this, it's going to look bad. People are going to think you can't handle criticism." Teddy stopped and turned back to face her, and the look on his face was one of complete exhaustion mixed with anger. "Let them think what they want. I can handle criticism, Kelly. What I can't handle is being disrespected in the guise of tough love. There's a way to challenge someone without tearing them down, and you chose not to take that route. So whatever happens after this, whatever people say, I can live with it. Because at least I'll know I stood up for myself." Kelly's voice rose, desperation creeping in now. "You're being selfish, Teddy. Think about my show. Think about my crew. Think about all the people who made this happen. You're putting all of them in a terrible position." That seemed to strike something in Teddy, and his face hardened. "Now you want to talk about other people? Now you want to consider how your actions affect those around you. Where was that consideration when you were attacking me? Where was that awareness when you were creating this hostile environment? You don't get to play the victim here, Kelly. You started this." "I started a conversation," Kelly insisted, her voice shaking now. "A conversation that you couldn't handle. That's not my fault, Teddy. That's yours." Teddy shook his head slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was filled with sadness rather than anger. "You really don't see it, do you? You really don't understand what you did wrong here. And that's the saddest part of all of this. Because somewhere along the way, Kelly, you lost something. You lost the ability to connect with people without tearing them down. You lost the empathy that probably made you want to do this show in the first place, and I'm genuinely sorry for that. I'm sorry that the industry did that to you." Kelly's face went pale, and for a moment she looked genuinely shaken. "Don't you dare psychoanalyze me. You don't know anything about me or what I've been through." "You're right," Teddy said softly. "I don't, just like you don't know anything about me or what I've been through. But the difference is, I'm not pretending to. I'm not sitting here claiming to know what's best for you or how you should live your life. I'm just asking for the same courtesy. And apparently, that's too much to ask." The silence that followed was deafening. Kelly stood there, her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been regret. Teddy looked at her for a long moment, then turned to the audience. "I'm sorry you all had to witness this," he said, his voice genuine. "This isn't what anyone signed up for today. But I hope you can understand why I can't stay. I hope you can understand that sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from situations that don't serve you." A few people in the audience nodded, and there was a smattering of supportive applause, which seemed to infuriate Kelly even more. She whipped around to face them, then back to Teddy. "Unbelievable. You're actually turning my audience against me." "I'm not turning anyone against anyone," Teddy said tiredly. "I'm just being honest, something you claim to value. Remember?" Kelly's face flushed a deep red. "Get out," she said suddenly, her voice cold. "If you're going to leave, then leave. Stop dragging this out. Stop making speeches. Just go." Teddy nodded slowly, gladly. He moved toward the stairs that led off the stage, his movements deliberate and controlled, despite the emotion clearly coursing through him. Kelly stood frozen in the center of the stage, watching him go, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. As Teddy reached the bottom of the stairs, one of the producers approached him, whispering urgently. Teddy shook his head firmly, waving them off. He kept walking, heading toward the exit at the back of the studio. The cameras followed him, capturing every step, every moment of this unprecedented departure. So what do you think about this whole situation? Was Kelly's final apology genuine? Or was it just damage control? And do you think Teddy will ever forgive her for what happened on that stage? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you all think about this. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another story like this one.